Hey, so it's really exciting to have Dr. Brian Lenzkes with us this morning. One of the main things that we want to do is try and get the word out. And one of the best ways to do that is to find doctors and medical practitioners that get it and start to help us get the word out as well. And Dr. Lenzkes is one of those people. Brian, I'm not totally familiar with the whole timeline. I know that you came to our event in August and that had a huge impact on you, but I think as far as I understand it, you were already embarking on this at least for your own purposes. And then you sort of went from there onto advocating it for your patients and stuff. So maybe you just give us a rundown of how it started for you, how you got into it, and now especially what it's doing for your patients.
Yeah, Doug, you know, it's amazing. I've been overweight my whole life. It's always been a struggle. And you look at all these different things and, you know, you see Dr. Oz coming out and saying, this is the next miracle. You just take this pill, you lose weight. You hear other people, and it doesn't work. In reality, it doesn't work. You see your patients not getting better. You see people struggling. So the last 12 years of practice, I've been looking at my patients not getting better. I'm doing the standard of care. I'm giving them the meds they need. And so I needed a paradigm shift for myself. And I think most doctors don't struggle with weight the way I did. So I had to look and try to make myself healthy. And all these people I come across, including yourself, have made a change in their life. And you see the benefit and you see them doing better and feeling great and interacting and exercising and doing these kind of things. So my journey was, I was overweight as a kid, wrestled in high school, lost a bunch of weight doing that, played football, was very active, maintained my weight. Then after high school, go off to college and you study and eat, and then study and eat a little bit more and you gain weight. Going off to med school was kind of the same thing. You never have time to eat, so you shove it down when you can. You don't even really enjoy it. And then going off to residency is probably the worst thing you could do because we don't know when we're going to eat again. So we shove down a bunch of food and then we have a break 2 hours later and said, uh-oh, we better eat again. And we're not sure if we're going to have a break again. And so I gained weight during residency. Then private practice, you're sitting around all day. You know, I've always exercised and I've always tried to watch my diet, but slowly the pounds just crept back on. So through a ton of events, I came across Jason Fung, who's a nephrologist up in Canada. Almost everyone listening to you probably knows of him. He's an outstanding human being, but an exceptional doctor and very confident in what he's saying. So I thought I'll just watch this nutty guy for a little while and see what happens and what he has to say. And when I realized he wasn't selling me something, he wasn't saying, hey, here's the new gimmick, here's the best thing coming around. He said, look, intermittent fasting and a low-carb diet is what helps. And I saw that he was reversing diabetes. And I thought, you know, maybe I'll try it myself first. I'm not going to make my patient the guinea pig. So from February until about March or so, I had lost 20, 25 pounds. And I thought, holy cow, this is working. I saw my numbers improving. I was in the pre-diabetic range when I started, despite eating a relatively low-carb diet, meaning I'm very insulin resistant. So I had to take some steps. And once I did that, I started mentioning it to a couple of my patients and said, hey, go watch this guy on YouTube, you know? And then you start seeing them having benefit. And I'm seeing people start coming off insulin. And I actually had the blessing last night, which is amazing, of talking to the 2 keto dudes, right? And in preparation, I printed up some of the notes I had kept on my patients. And I thought, wow, this is overwhelming. It's unbelievable. I knew it was good, but when you see 40 or 50 people lost 20 pounds, lost 15 pounds, lost 30 pounds, coming off insulin, stopping this, and I've never had that experience in my career. So I think that's what brought me here to you. I think the biggest impact on my medical career was going to the Low Carb USA conference. And that's a plug for you. I'm sure you're not going to complain, but it's true. It's true. And it made me realize these guys are not just guys saying, hey, you're going to lose weight, but you're going to have a heart attack. You know, as a doc, I got to look at all the whole picture. And there's world experts in cancer, in diabetes, in dementia, in you name it, right? When you hear the Navy SEALs are doing a ketogenic diet, NASA is doing ketogenic diet, you think, wow, there's got to be some science behind this. These guys aren't just going to jump on some fad bandwagon. So that, you know, and so at the conference, I'm a nobody. I'm just another doc. They don't even know I'm a doc there, And so I reached out to a couple of the guys. It happens that Dave Feldman, who I believe is going to really change the practice of medicine from an outside stand. He's not a doc, he's not a medical professional, but he himself saw problems in himself with elevated cholesterol, and he started experimenting. And his experiments show our foundation is flawed, and we could manipulate our cholesterol numbers like crazy by fasting for 3 days or eating high fat diet for 3 days can actually drop your cholesterol. And I thought, wow, that's pretty wild. Then you have someone like Ivor Cummins there who is talking about his cholesterol and risk factors. And you think, wow, we're looking at the wrong markers, guys. So at least what we have to do is reassess what we're doing. And I was impressed at the conference because all these guys said, hey, I've got time between talks. Let's go have a cup of coffee and discuss this stuff. This community is unbelievable. And us docs generally are more arrogant than the general population. So when you see people who really are passionate and love what they're doing and want to share it with you, it changes you. Just like anything, a religious group or people who volunteer somewhere, when they're passionate, they love what they do, you're drawn to that naturally. And so I had to go back to my practice and reassess what I was doing and saying, okay, do we stay with the standard of care? Now, of course, there's a standard of care that we have to maintain because that's the standard of care. But if we can take people off medications and help them without throwing another drug on top, you realize the benefit of that, and I'm seeing that. I'm seeing the fruit of my labor, and every day I'm learning. I thought that was true. That's not true. Let's try this. And patients come back and say, this is what works for me. And I think in the nutrition community on Facebook, I see that there's warring factions going on. The vegans are going to attack the high fat guys. And when we realize we have a lot more in common than we realize, sometimes when we stop judging each other and just saying, yeah, hey, you're vegan, you lost 40 pounds, you're feeling great. I'm not going to change what you're doing. You're having results. But if you're vegan, and I have a lady who's vegan and she's gained 45 pounds in the last 3 years, she's extremely frustrated because she keeps gaining weight and she wants her thyroid checked. And we check all that stuff. But guess what? Insulin is the problem. And when we come back to that and we understand that's the unifying problem that we have to address, it changes things.
So when did you first start introducing this or advocating this for your patients? It wasn't that long ago, right? A few months this year. In February, I started my journey more strongly. And then I saw the benefit. Then I started seeing patients. Of course, I had to be down about 25 pounds or so until it made any sense to people, right? They look and say, wow, doc, I don't even have to bring it up anymore because people look and say, wow, what are you doing? Right? And the door's open now and I can say, look, here's what I'm doing. May not be for everyone, but for me, it works because I have significant insulin resistance. And so I have to cut my carbs down. And so it's always a debate. So, because people say, so I have to give up bread, chips, salsa, all this kind of stuff. I said, well, it's a spectrum. Someone like you who's going to be a lot more insulin sensitive than me could probably get away with a lot more carbs if you're out running marathons and doing that. If I'm sitting at my desk, I'm kind of stuck. If I drink orange juice and toast and all that stuff, it's gonna be a problem. As a matter of fact, just yesterday, a patient came in for a cold, and 3 weeks ago he was here for his physical, and we were just talking about diet. He said, "I'm tired all the time." He weighs about 178 pounds, right? So I said, "What do you eat?" He said, "Every morning I do the same thing. I have a big glass of orange juice and a muffin." And I said, "You're working with a trainer, you're doing all this stuff. I'll bet you if you just stop that and eat everything else the same, you'll lose weight." 3 weeks later, he comes in, he's like, "Doc, 12 pounds down." Right? That's ridiculous. That's crazy. We could kill ourselves running and doing all this kind of stuff. Now, exercise has its value. There's no doubt about it. We need to do that for mental health and for physical health and for strength and for balance. And my seniors who are exercisers are doing way better than people who don't. But the point is, we can't overcome a bad diet with more exercise. And you know that. You speak to that, as does Tim Noakes and all the other experts out there. Absolutely. So you were telling me the other day that I think I asked you, how many patients have you already taken off insulin so far since you started this a few months ago?
Well, heck, I'll tell you, because I was just looking at it. It's been 11 patients this year, and it's in its infancy, so it's going to take some time. But these, like, you can kind of see this is like one page. Just, these are people that have had significant, and I could just read through a couple of them just to give you a flavor, because, you know, all these are lives changed by a ketogenic diet, or at least cutting their carbs. In here, before that, I could say in 12 years, I never had a person come off insulin naturally by what they're doing, by diets, ever. Never happened. And then you have 11 people in 1 year, and you sit back and say, holy cow. Now, for me as a doc, I have to say, is this sustainable? Can these guys continue this lifestyle? And I think the answer is yes. For me, it is yes. For me, it's Christmas. My patients love me. So how do they love you? Like we do with our friends and family. We bring chocolate and candy and stuff we baked. And so a vast majority of that stuff goes to my staff or family or friends who are insulin sensitive, and they can have it. So I'm not going to eat all that stuff and feel miserable in January, say, oh, I got to get my life back together. Because, you know, we've all done the same thing. January 1st, this is it. I'm going to the gym every day. And then 3 weeks in, life gets in the way. I'm busy. Okay, I'll take this week off. And then boom, you're back to where you were. So I think a lot of us are realizing that, and we see, hey, you know what? I'll just stay the course. Why would I totally come unhinged during the holidays and then in January have to kill myself to take off that extra weight, you know? So it's incredible. I'm seeing the impact, and I'm seeing what we can do to help people. And this is one little doc's office, you know, and we have to understand it's not for everyone. There's going to be some people say, I had a guy yesterday, and it was very frustrating for me because he has, his insulin level is super high. And as we know, that's your check engine light. If your insulin level is high, that means your body is working hard just to maintain its balance. And his insulin level is high. His sugars are not too bad. But I'm telling you, with that insulin being that high, it is not if, it's when he gets diabetes, if he doesn't change what he's doing. So as a matter of fact, it happened to me last week. My check engine light came on. I said, oh, that's it. I'm taking it to the dealership. I'm checking this out. Whatever they need to do, I'm doing it, right? So we have a guy like Chuck Hicks, who I'm sure you're going to have on, and this isn't a HIPAA violation. He knows I'm talking to you, and he's speaking publicly on this. He started out at 458 pounds. He came to me totally hopeless, and I looked at him as hopeless. I said, there's no way this guy's going to lose weight. How do you start when you're that huge, right? He can't, his life, you have to talk to him and hear his story. But this guy, I talked to him on Friday. I told him about Jason Fung. I told him about Jason Fung's book. I told him about what I learned at Low Carb USA. And that conference gave me the courage and the knowledge to say, hey, this is safe for this guy to try. So as we speak, he's down over 120 pounds since August 6th. That's gastric bypass doesn't do that. But this guy when I talked to him on Friday, he came in on Monday and said, hey, look, I read the book. I read this. I'm like, how the heck? I told you on Friday, how could you possibly got the book and read it? He said, next day air Amazon. And then I went through all this. And here's my questions for you. Let's get labs. And this guy he's an inspiration to me. There's days when I feel like eating some carbs and I think, man, I know Chuck's not doing it. I'll stay strong, you know? So he's an absolute inspiration. And I'll tell you, his life has changed. And I think when you sit down, when people see him, and I knew this from day one, I just had this feeling, he's going to reach way more people than you and I can. Because there's so many people out there that have just said, you know what, forget it. I'm just going to have my Doritos and watch TV, and I'm going to sit here and die, basically, you know? So once you get hope, it changes everything. And anything, if I have a patient, and I have a patient last week, and she came in and she said, oh, doc, you're going to be mad at me. My mom just died, and I've been eating more. My blood pressure's high. I know I have to go on meds. And her blood pressure wasn't too bad, but she's going in the wrong direction. And her mom died of bed sores, diabetes complications, all this horrible stuff we see that's so preventable. And I looked at her and said, you know what? You don't have to die like your mom. She said, I don't. And she started crying. She said, really? Because she thinks she is predestined to follow that same track. But lifestyle can make a difference. And that's what just this morning, I was talking to my partner who's an endocrinologist, and he kind of shakes his head. He goes, yeah, you're having success now, but people can't stick to that kind of stuff. So we don't even try. And I said, well, I said, what percentage of people you think could stick to it? He said, maybe 30%. But he's looking at people who've been on a low fat diet, calorie restriction, killing themselves and being miserable. Chuck Hicks says, look, I feel great. He goes, I can't believe, my patients come to me and say, I cannot believe, this is stupid, right? It's dumb. I make these little changes and I'm enjoying my life and I can still eat when I want to and I'm losing weight. Yeah, I kind of feel that way too. Some of the stuff I eat, I think, man, this is crazy, right? The good food you make, Doug, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that's why I don't get it when people say it's not sustainable, because it's the one diet or lifestyle where, like you said, you can pretty much eat when you want to. You don't ever have hunger. So you're never struggling, you know. Now you introduce fats back into your diet, it's everything suddenly tastes good again. I don't see where the lack of sustainability or the comment that is the case. I don't see that at all. What I see is that it's actually more fun, more enjoyable. I'm enjoying eating more than I ever have, and
yet
I'm never hungry. It's not a struggle. I don't get where people are saying that this is not sustainable. It's nonsense.
Well, I think the reason, Doug, and this is what I had to come to also, because when Jason Fung's video, it said intermittent fasting for weight loss, or something along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, fasting, this guy's kind of nutty, because everyone knows if you fast, you're going to shut your metabolism down. You're going to be fatigued and tired and weak. And when he makes his argument, you can't argue the argument. So I said, I'll try it. And I thought my stomach would be growling and all my patients would notice, you know what? I fasted for 3, 4, 5 days, and I come in and patients here for a physical at 10 in the morning. I say, hey, are you fasting for your labs? And they say, oh, no, I couldn't fast till 10:30 in the morning. And I'm thinking, I've been fasting for 3 days, right? So, but you see how easy it is and how ridiculous it is. So now generally, I'll fast on Mondays. I'm busy. I don't have time to eat lunch. So rather than shoving something down and not enjoying it, I'll sit down that night and enjoy my dinner with my wife, and enjoy that time. Because I think a lot of us are so fearful that if we skip a meal, we're going to die. And our body is not made that way. Our body is made to survive, and guys like you, guys like me, we start understanding that. And once you put it into practice, you realize it's not that hard. But that's why I'm giving this conference. You have to understand that once you become fat adapted, once your body is not hooked on sugar anymore, you could go, the Navy SEALs, they're going days without eating, right? Because they just burn the fat. So their body at this point, and my body doesn't care if I'm eating a cheeseburger without the bun, or I'm burning the fat that's there from Krispy Kremes 2 years ago, right?
Absolutely.
So as long as your body has an energy source, it's happy. But when your sugar's so high, like Chuck, he couldn't go 3 hours without eating. 3 hours, he'd get shaky, nervous, dizzy, all this stuff. 3 days in, he calls me. 3 days in, he says, Doc, guess what? It's 5 o'clock. I haven't eaten all day, and I'm not hungry. What should I do? I said, well, eat when you're hungry, man. If you're not hungry, don't eat. If you're hungry, eat. So he goes 3 days fasting on his first week. A guy who couldn't go 3 hours without eating, because what he did is he dropped his insulin level. By the way, that day also, and you'll speak to him. I don't want to tell his whole story and take his thunder, but he had pedal edema, swelling in his feet that you could push on it like dough, and it would stay there for 8 years.
Wow.
3 days in, that's gone, because he dropped his insulin, which was making him hold on to salt. So I think we're seeing these kind of things, and I'm seeing it with my patients, and they're coming and saying, Doc, I feel outstanding. That fatigue I had is gone. Those cravings I had was gone. I mean, it's the testimonies of these guys are unbelievable. And to me as a doc, we talk about burnout. The reason we're burned out is because we're doing the same thing and we're not helping anyone. When your patients come in and go, you know what? Guess what? Guess what I did? I went hiking last week. I've never been hiking in 5 years because I lost that weight and I'm feeling great. That gives you, like what you do, Doug, you reach out to people, and Low Carb USA makes a huge impact. Just wait, it's coming. Because when something's truth and it works, people will gravitate to that, as I did.
And that's what I'm really enjoying about interacting with you is seeing how excited you are about finally being able to actually help people. Like you've often said to me, like it's just so amazing to see all these patients come in, and I was looking at my records previously and seeing that I hadn't made a difference to any of them, and now suddenly I've got all of these patients who are actually responding and changing their lives, and that's now exciting for you as a doctor. And what's really cool for me is that now it's doctors like you that are that get it and go out there and start preaching to your patients, but not just your patients. I know you want to put on these local events and stuff where actually get other doctors and that and teach them about it, so that they can start doing it as well. And that's what we really need. We need the doctors and the medical professionals to start advocating this to their patients, and that's how this whole thing is going to grow.
Yeah, it's really going to come down to education. We have to look at our system that's broken. What we've been doing is not working. We have an epidemic of diabetes, obesity, cardiovascular disease, and we sit back and say, well, I wonder what's going on. You know, it's like that video with the nail in the head. Have you ever seen that on YouTube? The lady has a huge nail in the middle of her head, and she's like, I keep getting this pressure and this headaches. And the husband says, there's a nail in your forehead. And she says, you know, I'm tired of you just saying that all the time. Why can't you just listen, right? And so that's the point. We have the nail in our forehead. We see what the problem, and it's right below our noses. And we're so focused on the wrong target. You know, everyone, we're all, including myself, we say, gosh, LDL cholesterol, we got to keep an eye on that. Now, when you come across someone like Brett Scher, right, who's a cardiologist who understands, he goes, look, that's not your risk factor. Here's your risk factor. So that's why I'm so fortunate and blessed to have him come back into my life. We trained together at Mercy Hospital. We go 12 years our own way. And of all things, my chiropractor brings a copy of his book and says, hey, you're going to have to read this. This guy's great. He's saying the same thing as you. And I said, oh, it's some quack out there probably. I'll see what he's selling, right? And I said, oh, no, I know this guy. So I reached out to him. One thing leads to another. We hook up with you because we all have the goal of building community. And I asked him I just said, can you come speak with me at this thing I'm doing? He said, yeah, when is it? I'll be there. So to have guys like that, he's not getting paid to do that. He's taking time away from his family because he believes and he knows. And all of us, the nutritionists, you know, Rachel Gregory from Killing It Keto is going to be there. Jeff Cotterman from Tri-System Nutrition. These guys get it. And Jeff had to do a huge paradigm shift because he was doing the standard of care, and he realized, holy cow, he looked at the data, and then he was honest enough to go back and look at his patients and his clients that were obese, and he said, it's not working for those guys. Mm-hmm. Now, what he was doing is he's helping world-class athletes and guys who want to lose two pounds and put on 3 pounds of muscle type thing. And he's killing it with those guys because they're insulin sensitive and they're going to respond. So once he said, let me look into this, he realizes this is the way to go. So I think all of us kind of see, hey, it's not working, guys. We got to take a change. Instead of saying, you guys are on the fringe, which it's okay, because what will happen is the standard of care will change. Because in my practice, the standard of care is changing. Because all of my partners thought I was absolutely crazy when I started talking about this, and a couple of them still do. But my partner, who's probably the smartest guy I know, said, you know what? We argued calories in, calories out. And I said, it's not true. And he said, yes, it is. And he's always been thin and never struggled with his weight. But once he realized, I said, insulin resistance is the underlying problem. And once he got that concept, that's what we have to get doctors to understand, insulin resistance. Because once we understand that, we say, it's not just the calories. And the nutritionist initially got upset with me and said, hey, you're taking personal responsibility from these people. Because they believe everyone got fat by being dumb and lazy, right? You sit on your butt, you watch TV, you're playing video games. No, it's because you're insulin resistant, and we can fix it now. We see what the problem is. Now, guess what? You have tons of personal responsibility, because if I say, hey, Doug, look, you got to give up the chips, or you got to give up this. This is the problem. And you do it and you get results and you realize, holy cow, this is working. So the whole calories in, calories out, I struggle with that. And I think don't get me wrong, I think calories are important to some degree. I mean, if I eat 10,000 calories a day of fat, guess what? I'm going to gain weight. Exactly. But that being said, most people, our bodies are going to adapt. And we realize we're not, on the ketogenic diet, I'm hardly ever hungry. I think, everyone's eating, I'll eat. But I was not like, I'm starving, I got to eat. You don't get that panicky feeling people are struggling with this food coma after eating lunch, and they're tired all afternoon, and then they're starving and they have to eat something, and then you're on this binge thing all night. So once you get freed of that, you're free to hang out with your family and play a game or go for a walk or do something different rather than wanting to eat chips all night. Yeah. So I think when we see these things, our life changes. And because as I told you, I said, Doug, look, this community is going to grow because you get one nail technician or you get one hairdresser who loses 40 pounds, and they're going to tell 1,000 people, right? One doctor who has success, they're going to tell a bunch of people. And so I think in medicine, there's a lot of fear of competition, of not being the only one who's doing it. Say, I have a niche right now, but guess what? I can't do it all. So we need more docs to come help people, because the bottom line is we got to help people. And we're all going to be successful. I guarantee it, because it works. And so I think realizing that, and as I grow, you grow, right? We all realize that as any of our practitioners reach out to people, we all help people, and it's going to grow like crazy because it's not a fad. And that's the other fun thing. my partner says, yeah, this is a fad and it's going to go away. And it's, you know, it's just one of those things. Everyone's talking keto. And there's always a fringe element when something like this happens. There's going to be keto this and keto that. You don't have to exercise. You don't have to eat right. Just eat this thing and you're going to be in ketosis. Well, I think the problem is when you look back at medical history, I happened to collect old medical books. So I grabbed a couple of them down. I said, let's see what these guys say about diabetes management. In 1889, cut your carbs, get rid of starchy food, cut your carbs, eat more protein and fat. 1911, same thing. Guess what? We get insulin in 1921. And now we say, yeah, just go on insulin. We'll fix it. You can do whatever you want now. We got the cure. It's insulin. Now we know insulin's killing people. And we have to look at that and say, okay, what were we doing before we had these drugs? We were doing it by diet and exercise, right? Let food be thy medicine. Now we don't need food anymore. We'll just do medicine. You eat whatever you want. We'll take care of it, buddy. Guess what? You're going to die from that advice.
Yeah, no, and that's the sad part, is how many people over the last 40, 50 years have actually died because of, you know, the advice that they've received. And that's why I'm so passionate about trying to help to change that. And it's so cool to have docs like you come on board with as much, if not, I would dare to say, even more passion than me. And it's really cool to have you on board. And I really look forward to working with you and Brett Scher and Jeff and, you know, everybody in this community in San Diego. And we're going to make it happen here locally. And, you know, as other doctors and medical practitioners around the country get on board as well, and they'll start to do it in their own communities, and we'll maybe have the model here that people can follow.
Yeah. I'll tell you, this journey for me has been I've been some crazy places. I've looked at machine guns on the wrong end of them, you know, and I've been I've had the opportunity to speak to some guys from MS-13 in their neighborhood. Crazy stuff that I would never put myself into. Now, this journey has been one of the craziest, how we cross paths. You know, I reach out to you and you say, hey, let's meet on Friday, right? We have a great lunch and have a great time talking and say, hey, I like this guy. And I see his integrity. And I'm thinking you're this big shot guy, right? And you say, look, I took a second on my house. I took a step of faith to make this happen, right? You reached out to Gary Taubes and all these huge guys and they came and it happened. So you built this because you believed in something. You sacrificed, not to say I'm going to make $1 million. You say, hey, as long as I can pay my bills, I want to get the message out to people. The two keto dudes, they paid for their own podcast. They each paid $750 an episode just to produce the podcast because they believed in what they were doing. And now look where they're at. They were crazy enough to have me on last night. So, you know, it'll be on soon. Maybe that'll hurt the ratings a bit, but they took a step of faith because I can't tell you why they would have me on that show. I'm a nobody doc here in San Diego. I've never published a book. I've never done anything major. I have 300 something followers on Twitter, and they have however many hundreds of thousands of people. But they see our passion down here, and they say, look, we want to reproduce this around the country because the bottom line is this. The medical doctors have been given a bad rap. We try to help our patients. We go into medicine to help people. When I go on medical mission trips, these guys volunteer their time. They spend their own money. They take time away from family because they want to help people. That's what we're called to do. So a lot of people think we're getting a kickback from the statin companies. We're not. Us guys on the front lines are not. The higher ups, the generals are. And so that's when it starts to be a trouble. But I don't get paid anymore to give you a statin drug or to put you on insulin or to do any of those things. And the point is, at some point, we have to step back and say, how do I help my people? By giving them more drugs or by helping them change? And as we know, some people are not, they're going to see the truth. And you told me how frustrating it is. And I see the same thing. It's frustrating. This guy yesterday, I could sit down and say, look, you will have diabetes. You will have, I'm not saying it might, you will. He says, I can't give up my chocolate and my candy. I said, well, then you got to be ready to shoot up insulin and check your sugars 3 times a day because that's what's coming. I'm not being mean to him. I'm just saying that's your reality. You got to make a choice in life. And I had to make a choice in life. And you're always going to have someone that said, oh, George Burns lived 90. Yeah, but I can give you at least 40 of my patients who didn't have the same experience as George Burns and died when they're in their 40s and 50s because they smoked 2 packs a day. So there's consequence to what we do. And I think what's going to happen, and this is my prediction, hopefully you save this video. I would say it tells how old I am. I was going to say this tape. But what's going to happen is As a matter of fact, I ran into, I happen to know one of the top guys in the HMO that I work with a lot. And he looks at me and said, man, you lost weight. What are you doing? I said, I'm doing this keto thing. He's like, really? Tell me. And I said, how much time you got, right? Because it takes a while to explain this stuff. But I said, look, not only am I benefiting, I said, I'm benefiting you. And he said, how are you benefiting me? I said, because I've had 11 people come off insulin. I didn't do it. They did it. They made a choice in their life that they're going to do this and they're going to make their lives better. But those 11 people are not going to go on dialysis from kidney failure, from poorly controlled diabetes. They're not going to have ulcers on their feet. They're not going to have severe peripheral neuropathy requiring narcotic pain medications. They're not going to go blind. They're not going to have all these expenses that you guys are paying for with our insurance dollars. So when we make people healthier, the health insurance companies make out. The drug companies don't get me wrong. They're not going to like it one bit, but these guys are going to be spending a lot less on drugs, on treatment, on catheterizations, on stents, and all this kind of stuff. So my goal is to keep all my patients away from Dr. Schur, the cardiologist, right?
Yeah, but I mean, you were telling me the other day that your pharmaceutical rep or whatever has already been harassing you, saying, why aren't you ordering? You're not ordering as much insulin and meds as you were doing previously. What's up?
Exactly. Yeah, it was funny. It was actually the other day, and I was walking by we have a drug closet with all the meds in there, and the pharmaceutical reps will hang out over there, and they're just doing their job. They have to get a signature from all the docs that I talk to these guys and prove to their bosses that they're doing their job. So I walk by and say, oh, can I sign for you real quick? And she says, you're off my list. I said, what do you mean? She goes, you don't write my drug anymore. What are you writing? And I said, well, I'm not writing anything. I'm taking my patients off insulin. And she looked at me and said, you can't take people off insulin. And I thought for a second. I said, you're absolutely right. They took themselves off of insulin, right? They had to make a choice and go home and say, I'm going to change what I'm doing. And they're taking themselves off insulin. And Doug, I've told you some of the crazy stories about what we do in medicine. And you shake your head. Like the lady I told you about that she was on 20 units of long-acting insulin at night, 10 units of insulin with each meal. Every time she's shooting up, she has to go out. It's a hassle and it's a pain. So she came and said, I don't want to do this anymore. She said, I've gained 30 pounds. I've had, I'm tired all the time. I just don't feel great. And she said, is it possible I could ever come off insulin? I said, well, how much time do you have? Right. That's why I made my website. So I could put people on there, and I did a blog, and you say, look, Jason Fung, Dom DeAgostino, Low Carb USA, all these guys, Brett Schur, his podcast is outstanding. It really is. I hate to admit that because I know the guy, but it's unbelievable. His book is excellent. I have things I'm telling people every day that I learned just from watching his podcast. So I'm gaining stuff from knowing this guy also. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, she took matters into her own hands. Within 2 months, she's off all insulin. I can't believe it. I thought, she's, and that's what I love about this job too. There's people that I think they don't get it. I have a lady, her A1C is always 11.8, and I argue with her about cutting her carbs and doing all this stuff. She never listens. I'm frustrated with her every time. She comes in this time, her A1C, without changing meds, goes from 11.8 to 6.4 because she got it. She got that I can't be eating carbs all the time. So going back to my other lady, in 2 months, she comes off all of her insulin. She goes to a major university, and they have a program where they'll pay for your meds if you get into this diabetes drug program. She's off all of her meds. She goes there, and they say, oh, you know what? You're doing pretty good. You're 3-month sugar average. Everything looks good, but you're not eating enough carbs. So I'm going to put you on 45 grams of carbs with each meal, and then we're going to give you insulin to cover those carbs. That is absolute insanity. You're off. It's like helping an alcoholic to recover and say, hey, you've done so great. I'm going to give you a beer with each meal now, right? Or you're allergic to peanuts. I'm going to give you the peanuts with each meal. Then I'll give you Benadryl to cover that. You say, no, you avoid the peanuts. That's what's causing you trouble, right?
Absolutely,
it's
yeah.
insanity. And it's not that they're bad people. They just don't get it. They don't understand insulin resistance because the problem is our target is wrong. We say you got fat from eating too much fat, but that's not the truth. We got fat because we have insulin resistance from eating too much sugar. And so people tell me a lot. They'll say, I'm on a low-fat diet, but they're eating 3,000 calories of a low-fat diet. Guess what? All that extra calories is stored as fat.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not used as energy. That stored as fat. So when you're using fat as your energy source, once you switch your body over and you allow someone like Chuck who can fast for 2 weeks at a time because he has fat stores to do that, right? And he feels great and his energy is great. He feels better when he's fasting than when he's eating, right? And it's not an eating disorder. Don't get me wrong. It is that he feels better, that he can function better. And this guy's out doing stuff he's never done. The point is, we have to make some changes. You know, we have to get to a point where we understand that we're hurting people by not doing the right thing. It's not just give you a pill for this and a pill for that. And people are fed up with it also. So if I have the ability to change that in myself, then a lot of people do. A lot of people say, you know, I don't want to be sick anymore. I want to be able to go enjoy stuff and go hiking and because we have to live our life. And so it's not just diet. You know, there's stress, there's anger, there's resentment. There's so much to this. You know, a lot of people are obese because they were abused as a kid or they were sexually assaulted. And this is their comfort and it keeps them from having this happen again. So there's a lot to this. It's not just simply saying, I'm going to change your diet and your life's going to be great. Just like you can't say, I'm going to become a Christian, my whole life's perfect. You're going to hit bumps in the road. There's going to be those trials. We know there's going to be plateaus. The problem is, if people don't believe and they don't have a nutritionist and someone who's following to say, hey, you hit a plateau, let's cut your calories. Let's go up on your calories. Let's fast for a day. Let's gorge for a day. Whatever it is, we have to work together to figure this out. And that's why we can't separate. That's why it's incredible. You know, we all sat down and had a dinner together and we're all of the same mindset, is that we want to help the patient. And it's not a one size fits all, right? One guy could get away with a lot more than the other guy. But sometimes the beautiful thing is, with this kind of ketogenic diet is over time, you make yourself more insulin sensitive, then you could have that cake every once in a while. You could have some butter. We have butter all the time. Bacon, I know that's on your shirt on the back. I know that's there already. But you could have more of the things that you love. Like for me, I say, you know, I love bread. So I'm cutting out all bread. But if I go to my friend's Italian restaurant, guess what? I'm going to have a piece of his bread because it's good and it's rare. I don't go every day. I go once a month and it's going to be okay. So I think we can't be too fanatical in our beliefs, but we got to make changes. If we want change, you have to make a change because what you're doing isn't working. And that's what we all see. And I think people that are courageous enough, like Jeff Cotterman, who says, I've been doing this for 27 years and I'm turning around 180 degrees, right? You get someone like Tim Noakes, same thing. So these guys I respect. It's not that they're wishy-washy and they change their views based on the data and the evidence and experience. They didn't just say, I feel like changing my view. I'm going to, contradict everything I've said for the last 40 years, And so I think that's what's important. We have to be able to say, what I'm doing is not working, just like anything. Like I said, if you're vegan and it's working for you, great, right? I'm not going to convert you to what I'm doing. I'm not going to tell you what you're doing is wrong, but it's working for you. If you're doing it for health benefits, we have to look at the data. It doesn't say that it's going to help you. Most vegans die of coronary disease just like the rest of us. It's not a prevention. So a lot of people have this misconception that if I eat vegan, I'm going to live forever. Well, it doesn't work out that way, And so, and I'm not saying that veganism is wrong, but I have like I started telling you, a vegan that she's been eating French fries and there's a ton of vegan stuff that's totally unhealthy. I have some vegans I take care of that are extremely healthy because they walk. They don't eat a lot of processed foods and carbs. So I think what we have to do is all step back and say, guys, let's not battle. Let's all agree. Let's get rid of the sodas. Let's get rid of the processed foods and the really bad stuff that we're telling people is health food sometimes, So many people come in and they're eating bran muffins. And when you look at the sugar and it's like three Cokes or something ridiculous like that, Jamba Juice large is like 3 Cokes. And people say, I just had Jamba Juice so I could eat more calories. I'm going to snack more today. I said, well, it doesn't work that way. So I think once we start learning and realizing and people change what they're doing, we're going to make some impact, and this community is going to grow. And as this community grows, Low Carb USA is going to be packed and you're going to have to move it to a bigger venue. That's what I see happening. I'm just warning you now, because when things work and you have a sense of community and people can help each other and they don't need you and me anymore. They reach out to each other and say, hey, Chuck, what are you doing? This guy's going to help more people than we ever will think of, because he brings hope to people. He says, man, he did it. I'm only 300 pounds, right? When you have someone who's 458 pounds who drops 120 pounds before Christmas, you're kidding me, right? This is ridiculous. I can't believe it still.
Yeah, I look forward to actually having a chat with him. That's going to be really fun. Anyway, I know that you have to rush off quite soon. I really look forward to working with you and Brett and your whole community to see what we can do here in San Diego, and maybe they'll be the first place to really get traction on this and expanding within the medical community as well, which is what we really need. I think that that just quickly, it was just something that you kept bringing up, is that you had so many people come to you during the event in San Diego saying, like, because everybody's seeing the results that other people are getting. They try and get themselves, but they can't find a medical practitioner that gets it, that they can go to. They're going to a doctor who's telling them that they're going to die of a heart attack. And it's almost like the numbers in the general public that are starting to at least look at this as a legitimate way of addressing their problems is outpacing the number of medical practitioners that are keeping up. And so there's this huge deficit of medical practitioners that we as people that are getting on this lifestyle, we don't have doctors that we can go to because they're all like you and they're not taking any more patients. And so I think it's really critical that we get this out to and start converting more medical practitioners so that we've got people that can support the public that want to do this. So
absolutely. And then the vice versa is that us medical practitioners who get it can't find a nutritionist who can walk hand in hand because we can't, we're too busy. We can't sit there. I can't counsel. My nurse is knocking on my door every day. Doc, you got the next patient waiting. And I'm like, oh man, I'm just telling this. It's like I'm evangelizing here because, you know, I feel like I get a kickback from Jason Fungerson because I sell him every day. I don't get a dime from him, and he's the most ethical guy around, really. So I think it's one of those things where it works, and the guy's right. Go talk. You don't need me. Go look at this guy, because that's what I did. That's how I got educated. It wasn't through medical school. It's a joke for nutrition. It really is. Yeah. Everyone knows that. And so you see these experts, and so we have to all plug in, and we have to build each other up and work together. And just everyone I've reached out to in the community has been great. You know, it's shocking to me how open this community is to helping people. Everyone has the same vision for the most part, is we want to help people. And I think that's why this conference, and we didn't even really talk about what we were supposed to talk about, is that it's going to be on January 14th in El Cajon. And I think you guys probably have a link to it, and I'll have a link to it on my website, which is
we don't actually have a link to it yet. You need to give it to me so I can put it on our site, but we will definitely put that up there.
All right. I'm at lowcarbmd.com, and people can go on. There's no charge. It's free. These guys are volunteering their time. And so on there, it has all the details. We're doing a Sunday morning, and because these darn two keto dudes, we added a Monday night because I think a lot of people I'm having a lot of interest from my patients and their family and friends and all that kind of stuff. So I'm super excited about what's going to happen. But you know, and it's a 6-week deal. It's a one day a week, but we're repeating that day the next day for 6 weeks. And so you don't have to come. People don't have to come every time. There's going to be different aspects that we're talking about. The first 2 weeks are more the medical part of it, and the last 2 weeks are more of a practical part of it.
Are you planning to record it and eventually put it out on your website as well, or?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to have you guys link to it. We link to it. Just so people can get educated. I think that's the bottom line. Is we have to educate as many people. Docs, there's going to be docs. So I'm inviting my doc friends. Hey, you come. If you don't like something, you don't agree, let's talk about it. We can have civil debates and say, no, I don't agree. And I say, well, I have civil debate with my partners. I say, guys, how many have you taken off insulin this year? How many have you taken off in the last 10 years? I guarantee you, I've had more patients come off insulin than any of you all of you combined in your entire practice, because I never had any. And so I think there's going to be education where doctors understand insulin resistance. We got to see what the insulin levels. We can prevent disease before it happens. That's why we're here. So that's the excitement I have. I think getting the message and educating people, because all of us say, I don't want to hear about that. Turn your mind off. Done. Right. But once someone is reasonable and you understand what they're saying, that does a huge deal for the community, because there was certain truths I had to accept before I could say, okay, I'll do this. Because for me, it's not about weight loss and you die of a heart attack. It's not about weight loss and then you're miserable all the time and hating life. It's about having the quality of life that you could live a long, happy life, enjoy your family, go and do your stuff. And then you come to me and we sit for 15 minutes and talk, and I'm not adding meds and looking at drug interactions. We're two human beings sitting there at that point rather than panic mode trying to fix you. Right. So I think that's what we're all seeing, and it's super exciting. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you and everything you've done. And man, it's just overwhelming. I'm overwhelmed by the community.
Yeah. And I'm overwhelmed by your passion, because we need to reach more people like you. So thank you for what you're doing. I look forward to working with you guys. And yeah, let's go and, like you keep saying, let's go and change the world.
All right, man. We'll do it.
Thanks very much, bud.
All right. Take care, Doug. Good to see you.